My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path. Hello.
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 Yeah.
Hello.
Good morning, Cathan.
Good morning.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And for driving all
Pleasure
the way up
to be
here.
here.
Yeah.
It's a lovely drive. It's a lovely morning. So
It
I
is.
was happy for the sunshine and the trees starting to turn.
Yeah.
A little bit of color here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I love all the seasons, but yeah. Yes, I'm definitely a fall winter person, the cooler temperatures and snuggly.
Yeah. Is it a sense of coziness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fires and yes, being outside more. Yeah. I'm not a heat person. I mean, I don't think our summers are that bad here, but I definitely prefer 70 and below. All the way below, right? All the way what I said earlier in my life was you can only take all your clothes off.
Yeah.
You can always put more on, but you can only take them all off. And you could still be really hot naked. So.
Well, I think you're hot. That was way too easy.
Yeah.
You just said softball stuff. Come on.
Low-hanging fruit there.
It was. Anyway, sorry, Cathan. Couldn't help myself.
He couldn't help himself. Oh, well, again, thank you for coming. Yeah. So when I asked you about, coming and having a conversation with us and learning our topic, my inner knowing, do you remember what your reaction was to thinking about doing that?
I think inner knowing as a phrase really resonates with me.
Yeah.
Because it's what I do. It's what I practice. It's what I have come to love about being alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I, heard the phrase or even saw the words, I thought, oh, yeah, I like these people. There's some shared reality just in the phrase, I think.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, when you think about my inner knowing, what does it mean for you at this point in your life, right? Because it's such a journey.
Boy, has it been a journey.
Yeah.
And now it is very different.
Yeah.
Because I had curiosity for a long time and exploring different things for a long time.
Yeah.
And now it is such a deeper sense of inner knowing. I think out of all the skill sets I've practiced and gained and continue to practice, I do lean most heavily on the needs awareness.
Okay.
It has proven to me to be that deepest part of knowing of myself.
Tell us more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I love it when someone contributes to my sense of being seen and known. And the deeper I go into needs awareness work, the more I realize I can do that for me, probably better than anyone. And it's knowing all of me. It's that vertical integration, of being aware of my thoughts, my judgments, feeling the feelings, accepting them, befriending them, asking where they're pointing. And the thoughts and the feelings and my body sensations, what's going on in my body, those are all pointing to my needs.
Yeah.
What I care about, what matters to me, what I'm longing for, what I'd love to have more of in my life. And that knowing is different than other kinds of knowing that I have pursued or practiced. And actually now it's the convergence of all of that. I would say, though, that for me, inner knowing is about knowing all of those parts of myself. Being present with my thoughts, my feelings, my body sensations, and translating all of that to my needs.
Yeah.
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 That's a deep sense of knowing.
Yeah.
And going from, I'll say, obvious needs, like if I'm super hot, even if I'm naked.
Yeah.
If I'm super hot, I'm uncomfortable. I'm so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And to be able in the moment to translate that to, how I would love some comfort right now.
Yeah.
Like knowing what it is I need in that moment.
Yeah.
I would love some comfort.
Yeah.
And then that might be kind of obvious because I'm uncomfortable. There might be something underneath that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if I had comfort right now, then what would I have?
And
then so it's always going to whatever deepest need I can find.
Okay.
And that is a journey that is deeply knowing of myself.
Yeah.
That inner knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All those layers of needs underneath there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a really...
It's a gift.
Yeah, it is.
That I give myself.
Yeah.
And it's what I can contribute to
yeah.
other people.
Yeah. Could you walk us through like what your process might be around going down all those layers?
Yes. And I can do it with light examples, medium examples, and super heavy, hard things. So I'm just connecting in this moment to what would be most useful.
Sure, absolutely.
It doesn't do much good if I'm, crying.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay too.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. It's okay. It's just not very effective for talking.
Mm-hmm.
So let me think of an example. Well, I have an example that is this week.
Okay.
And it's been one of those weeks where a friend of mine said it this way: well, would you like your luck to change for this week? There's been several things that I would say haven't worked for me. That's how I put it.
Yeah.
And so I'll just take one of those. I got a call from my accountant who said, I'm realizing something's different than we thought, and I think it's going to look like this. And it wasn't a way that I wanted it to look like at all.
Yeah.
And it was a shock, and I was worried. Lots of things were coming up for me.
Yeah.
Okay. This is more of a low to medium example. And in the moment that I was listening, what I was noticing was I had a lot of judgments about law and rules. And the word fairness kept coming up in my mind. And I know that's a judgment. So for me, I experienced the word fairness as a judgment.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, so what are all my judgments? And I really want to allow the judgments because I spent decades thinking judging was wrong and that I was bad if I was judging someone or something. And now I have judgment parties. I love it. I bring it in because it's taking me somewhere. So I thought of all my judgments about systemic stupidity, and, I just let it come. And boy, I had a lot of judgments about the IRS and government and taxes, and that's so dumb. And so once I kind of wear out the judgment party, I said, all right, what are those judgments about? What are they about? I would love a sense of care. I would love a sense of consideration.
Yeah.
And not just for me in this moment, but all the people, because we all have different situations. We all have something slightly different that might make that rule just not make sense for me or them, And so then there was this sense of, I love a sense of consideration for humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately the thought is, oh, for all beings, you know, and for the planet. Like, I want a sense of consideration. I love that.
Yeah.
And so then I embody that.
Mm-hmm.
What does it feel like in my body when I have a sense of consideration?
Mm.
And it's immediately, oh, yeah, the shoulders open up, the collarbones spread apart, and I get a little taller. Oh, I love a sense of consideration.
Mm-hmm.
It contributes to my sense of care,
Mm.
connection,
Yeah.
closeness. So many other needs are met if I have a deep sense of consideration.
Yeah.
So I get connected to that. I embody that need.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps me let go of all those judgments. The judgments did their job. They helped me connect to what really matters to me
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
And I can let go of those judgments and then mourn. Then I can go to mourning.
Mm.
I don't go to mourning very effectively from a judgment mode.
Okay.
That's more about the feelings around that: anger, irritation, exasperation, frustration. And I let all those in when I'm doing the judgment party.
Mm.
But once I get connected to the need underneath all of that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the story anymore. The judgments don't serve me anymore.
Yeah.
And now I'm sad.
Mm.
I'm sad for myself and for anyone else for whom some law doesn't really make much sense.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no more, blame on the IRS. I know IRS agents. They're humans.
Yeah.
They're wonderful. They're
Yeah.
humans like any other human.
Right.
I know lawyers. They're wonderful. They're human. They're like any other human.
Yeah.
It's no one's fault. There's no blame in it. And yet I'm sad
Mm-hmm.
and a little despondent, maybe,
Yeah.
wishing, they're still wishing it were different. That I still like, oh yeah, I'm still wishing it were different. And then I can go there. What's that about? What's it about when I wish something were different?
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's about, in this case, mutuality. Like, can there be more of a sense of partnership and mutuality in working these things out?
Mm.
And thoughts come in like, well, that's impossible. That's why the system is there, because there's no way you can handle, however many million people are in this country and figuring out their taxes. So I get that. And
Yeah.
I still would love if there were a way, if there were a strategy to meet more needs in that process.
Yeah.
To meet more needs for connection
Mm-hmm.
and care
Mm-hmm.
and consideration, partnership,
Mm-hmm.
mutuality, inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
being seen.
Yeah. Right.
So it just helps me realize that would be cool.
Mm.
I would like that.
Mm.
And I would like there to be a way to meet more needs in the process of gathering funds to run our country.
Yeah.
And there's so much less tension in that statement than, this is so stupid. There's a lot of tension in that statement, and my body constricts and, wants to fold in half. And, and it's painful.
Mm.
But it's painful because of my own thinking.
Right.
And when I can shift out of a judgment mode, translate those judgments, shift into a need mode, and embody that need, that is very different.
Yeah.
My body is very different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot more self-connection, self-acceptance, acceptance of this is how it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is how it is.
Yeah.
And that's the process. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I translate my judgments to what matters most to me in this situation. I feel the feelings, which I didn't take so much time to do here, but I will feel that anger or that frustration or whatever that is and say, okay, what's it pointing to? What matters to me about this? That's where I get. That's the sort of ocean. That's where the water is headed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For you, Cathan, in a situation like that, and I'm not saying this is that situation, but one where we're experiencing that level of feeling of unfairness and non-consideration and non-mutuality. How do you, once you work through that process, how do you get clear or discern whether there's something that you need to do than to respond with, I don't know, I don't agree with that? Or have you taken this into consideration? Like, how do you get to that place, and what's your process around that? I mean, I call it discernment, but it can be a lot of different terms.
I agree. I like discernment, assessment, a decision. Because once I go through the process, accept my thoughts, feel the feelings, embody the needs, notice what's going on in the body. Once I do that, now I'm actually more naturally curious about what's next.
Yeah.
Or if it involves another person instead of an organization, it might be, I wonder what's going on for them. So the curiosity comes after the self-connection.
Okay.
I'm not super curious about what's going on for you when I don't even know what's going on for me. I tried that for decades and it wasn't very effective.
Yeah.
And so once I get deeply connected to what matters to me, then I get curious about the next step. And how I translate that for myself is, okay, once I'm connected to my needs, then I get motivated to meet them. Because strategies, I don't know, they can fall flat if they're not based on needs.
Yeah.
And so I want my strategies, my actions to be based on needs. And that's going to come from connecting to them first. So then it's that next step of, okay, I know what I would love.
Yeah.
I know what I'm really longing for in this situation. So I get motivated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to go get that need met.
Yeah.
And often it might not be with the person, with whom there's some kind of conflict or something to navigate. And that's part of my openness to, there are many strategies to meet my needs.
Yeah.
In this particular case, what happened is that I noticed, okay, I do have a sense of acceptance now that there is this rule. And I have more clarity, which I really needed also. I have more clarity. And I'm more connected to what I would love to see in a situation like this, just more partnership, care. And so I thought, okay, part of it is I'm resting all of this on the shoulders of the accountant, who's also doing thousands of other people's things. And I don't have very much knowledge. I don't have very much clarity myself about this.
Sure.
And so I thought I might experience this differently if I understood more. And so here I go.
Yeah.
And I started looking up, there's AI and asking just all kinds of questions and getting more information. And I noticed some things in all of that. And then I had more curiosity about that.
Yeah.
And so then I could call the accountant and say, I'm curious about these things. Does that matter? Does that make a difference?
Right.
And each time I'm contacting this person, just really wanting them to know, I trust that this is what you do and this is your expertise. And my explorations are so I can have more clarity and understanding. Because if I have more clarity and understanding, I will have more peace of mind.
Right.
And more acceptance.
Right.
And so to be able to express that I wasn't, it wasn't that I mistrusted, her, it's that I'm wanting, I'm recognizing a need that I have for more clarity. And so, shuffle around, try to figure out something. And we're still in the midst of it. So I sent an email with what I had found and my curiosities about these statements.
Right.
And does that change anything? And if it doesn't, that's fine.
Right.
Because I have some acceptance here. It's a curiosity. And so I was moved to do that. In other situations, Theresa, to answer your question, sometimes that deeper self-exploration is really all I needed. And I don't end up saying anything at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't turn into a conversation.
Right.
It's a recognition that this was about me and my experience, which it always is. It's and sometimes I do want to have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if it's someone I really care about and I want an ongoing connection, a long-term connection.
Right.
With one of my children or my mother. This is a relationship I care deeply about and want deeper understanding and harmony. And so maybe I want to have a conversation. But I get to make that decision after I'm deeply self-connected and it becomes more clear.
Yeah.
Because often before the deep self-connection, especially when I'm in judgment mode, boy, do I want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's funny how the energy is so different when you say it from that perspective.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, ooh, I want to talk about this,
Yeah.
And boy, after I get self-connected, there's no more of that energy. Then it's a choice.
Yeah.
Then it's an intention. Is there something I think would be helpful in our connection to talk about? And then I will prepare for that. And if I don't think that, then I'll just keep it right here. All that learning and growth, it's right here with me. And so that's a choice depending on the situation.
It's interesting. It feels like that exploration process, the whole process you just described is, even if you can't get the consideration from the other party, that is you're considering yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So you got it from yourself ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did you learn that?
Yeah. And I will say, I will go there. Where did I learn this? I will also say that, what you just shared, that I did it myself. That's probably one of the biggest shifts I've had around needs is, when I take 100% responsibility for my feelings and needs, I have such freedom when it comes with my connection to other people, because I don't hold you responsible for anything, right? That has to do with me.
Right.
Now, I do love it when you contribute. I love that. I might even ask for it, depending on the relationship. Ask if you'd be willing to contribute. But I don't hold you responsible. And that's the freedom I get, and hopefully the freedom you get from me taking responsibility and knowing that I can meet all of these needs for me.
Right.
Maybe not at 100%, because some of these connection needs, they get higher when other people are involved.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I can't meet it at least a little bit. And with every level of metness, it's met.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's big, that being able to do it myself. Yeah, to consider my own needs. That's a huge sense of consideration. And to do that exploration more deeply, that's a huge sense of being seen and known. So I can do that. Where did I learn this? It's a long and slow journey. I think it did start with the NVC, the nonviolent communication. All those 20 years ago or so, I was in a book club and someone said, "Hey, have you heard about that book by Marshall Rosenberg? Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life." And I said, "Nope." And let's read it. Okay, we read it. And I was inspired and stumped. So very mixed.
Yeah.
Very mixed when I read it. Deeply inspired. And I thought, oh, that's a very different way to look at my life experience.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. I guess I could see it.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how to do it. And so I felt very mixed about it. But I immediately started trying out this idea, in my life. So it started there. Wasn't an easy journey, though, because all my skill sets were very separate. I had a mindfulness practice, but it was a mindfulness practice.
Oh, okay.
And I had sort of a somatic practice, whether at the time it was yoga or ballet or martial arts, whatever it was.
Right.
But it was separate. And then I had this new sort of, and then with all the teaching in my background, there was a lot around acceptance of where people are, because that's how I want to be with youth that I'm teaching, or adults that I'm teaching. I want to meet you where you are.
Yeah.
That's always been a really important part of my being. I want to meet you where you are and have no expectations of where I think you should be.
Yeah.
But all of those pieces were very separate for me. And so when I took on NVC or wanted to study more about this needs awareness paradigm, like feelings and needs, duh, we all have feelings and needs. And it was so different than that. It was so different than just saying we have feelings and needs.
Yeah.
There was nothing about the embodiment of that or the practice of it or the experience of it. And so I had all these separate pieces of my learning in my life. And it took a long time, Walker, to bring those parts together. Don't know why. Don't know why it took so long. It's because in the middle of that journey, it got really hard. And I was overwhelmed with the challenge. And whenever I saw the need for challenge on the list, I kind of know the list, I can point where it is. I would be mad. I don't need more of that.
Yeah.
That is fully met. That is overly met. And I don't want that one, So
I feel you.
I don't want more of that. And so then, I would go through a little process of what is that? I want some ease for once. Can it just be easy today? And for a long time, it just wasn't. Day after day after day.
Right.
It was hard.
Yeah.
And I was overwhelmed, and I couldn't see that I could find the convergence of all of these things I believed in and practiced and wanted to learn more about. That was the place, that was the space where I could find more peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it took a long time. And as I said, when I was finally introduced to the compassion course and this idea of daily, weekly practice, putting these concepts into practice,
right,
finding a situation this week where you can apply this concept, then it wasn't just the needs awareness material that was being integrated, it was everything. Because then I could see, when you practice something, when I integrate these things into my daily life, that's when I can have a sense of inner knowing.
Yeah.
That's when I can have a sense of really being present with who I am and who I'm trying to be and how I see the world and how I experience you. Very different when I bring all of that together.
Agreed.
Like all I learned in my journey with mindfulness about presence and awareness. And sometimes I remember hearing myself say, aware of what? Present with what? It's, now that I'm present, now what? And I would get a little irritated sometimes,
I love the honesty of that. It just
it's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, great. Now I'm present. I'm still pissed, And I didn't know how to go, from one place to another.
Yeah.
And it was the daily practice and integration of these skills that helped me see, now I see. It is every moment.
Yeah.
It is. And it is every moment all day long. It's not just when I sit down to practice something.
Yes.
And really, I guess that is similar to, 30 years as a performing musician, decades of practice, and that journey it's not just when you're at the instrument and you're drilling a hard passage. It's embodying the music.
Yes.
All day long.
Yes.
As a human, that's part of me. That music is part of me. Those tunes go through my head all the time, whether I'm waiting in the garden or driving in the car. And that was the difference for this work.
Yeah.
That I could finally see, this is part of me. It is part of me all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's the integrative practice of these skill sets. And where I learned it, I think the integration part, really I learned from the Compassion Course.
So you've mentioned it a few times, so tell us about the Compassion Course.
Yeah.
It started with Tom Bond, who was a student of Marshall Rosenberg. And I think he also had a sense that, yes, Marshall had these great ideas and concepts, and it's like a new way of thinking and a new focus, I guess, on this idea of universal human needs. It's not that, it wasn't new. It's not a new concept, really. Right. It's just a different focus.
Right.
And so what Tom did was realize that we need a way to implement these ideas into when someone drops something on your toe. Yeah. And those little moments when you're so angry in that moment because there's pain.
Right.
And how do these big ideas apply to those little moments?
Yeah.
And big moments.
Yeah.
But how do they apply all day long? How do they apply just having a human experience? And so he offered these practices. These are ways that you can think about this in your, this week.
Yeah.
And so he actually wrote the book first. There's a book, The Compassion Book by Tom Bond.
Okay.
And then decided that this could be a course that people could take.
Okay.
And so it's a year-long course online with Tom Bond and those of us who work with Tom and share the work. And that sounds overwhelming. There are many year-long courses now out there, though, that many people offer.
Yes.
And so, yes, it can seem like a lot. Some people get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Put it aside for a while. Often they come back. And, this is my 6th year of the course. I have people in my practice groups who have been doing it 10 years.
Wow.
And they come back every year because each time they come to that practice, they are not the same.
Right.
We are not the same.
Right.
I'm not the same today as last year when I had this week's lesson. And so the lesson applies in every moment of my life.
Right.
And each time we go through it, I think I've heard many of my participants say, I learned something new or different about me every time.
Yeah.
And it is a journey of self-connection, of knowing. It is a journey of inner knowing. Every concept about needs awareness is about knowing myself more deeply.
Yes.
And when I share the work, I mentor many people. I have 3 international practice groups with people from all over the world. And we're all there to figure out how we can show up more compassionately in the world.
Yeah.
And it starts with how deeply can I know myself? That's where it starts. So this course is meaningful to many people.
Yeah.
It's a journey of knowing yourself more deeply. And the people I mentor, I have so much gratitude for being able to witness those shifts It's moving, inspiring. It's such a sense of contribution for me to just be there with them as a companion as they discover themselves more deeply.
Yeah.
And relationships change, transform. Estrangement turns to closeness. And of course, there are other ways to get there. This is, this isn't the end all be all. It sure works for me.
Yeah.
And it sure works for a lot of people
Yeah.
I work with.
Yeah.
This particular paradigm or belief is, it's based on everything we do to meet a need.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a human, I experience that as true now. Yeah. And that means if someone does something I really don't like, it doesn't work for me at all, that I can still have compassion.
Yeah.
Because they're human and they're trying to meet a need. I might be thinking that's not effective. That is not an effective way to meet that need.
Right.
Because it impacts the people around.
Right.
And I still believe they are trying to meet a need. They are trying to be human. And it's hard to be human.
Yes, I agree.
It's complex and it's hard. And so that belief that everything we do to meet a need.
Yeah.
That helps me be a more compassionate human being.
Agreed. When I took that class, a few months ago, the reality is, Cathan, I didn't understand what I was signing up for. I really, when I heard nonviolent communication, I thought, oh, well, this will be interesting. But I expected it to be more like dealing with terrorists or something, and I don't know, I just thought I value the things that Tracy recommends. Tracy recommended it. And so I thought I'm going to go, but I don't know that I had enough space to really get into what it was.
Yeah.
And then I get there and I was like, every single person on the planet needs to take this course. This is really, to me, so fundamental and so foundational into just being able to be in relationship with any level of success or health at all. Yeah. Yes. And like you said, I'm sure there's other modalities out there. This is just the first one that I've been exposed to that I felt like was so simple for me to understand. Watching people that were in the class, I remember a woman, the very first day, I don't remember exactly what you were having us do, but I remember her brain going, oh my gosh, I completely understand myself now. I did not understand that all of the struggle that I have is around this need. This for me is such a significant need that I did not understand that I have. And this explains so much of my life.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, right, to have that level of clarity. She was wanting it, right? I mean, she's seeking it. She's there wanting more understanding.
Yes.
And for it to be presented in such a way that she could hear it without it being seen as selfish or unkind was just really powerful for me to witness as a participant and an observer of other people's process. Yeah.
And when you see that, Theresa, are you moved?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And does it meet a need for inspiration?
Oh, yeah. And continue. This is why I do this work, right? I mean, often when I'm watching someone have that, I mean, it's such an emotional experience for me because I know from my own personal work the freedom that comes with having that awareness and in doing it in such a way, having the awareness in such a way that's not connected to shame, right? Or I'm bad, or I continue to fuck this up, whatever our story is, right?
Yeah.
But it's just understanding. Very powerful for me to experience myself and to witness and others. Yeah. I mean, there are many times when I see it in the therapy room where I am teary, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like just so, like one of the modalities that I'm trained in is hypnotherapy, and the type I'm trained in is a very experiential process, and it can be very difficult. And I did a 2-year program as part of the training where I was doing my own work as part of the training. And when I'm watching people go through that process, even pushing through the resistance and the story, I mean, I'm just crying, right? Not out of sadness, but really just like, because I know freedom comes with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it out of the joy of
Yes, it's
witnessing
joy.
that?
Absolutely
That
joy.
self-connection?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I just think how far I've come, you know, in doing like that first realization. You know, I was 24, 25, and I went to this retreat at the church that I was attending and had that realization that for the first time that I felt like something was wrong with me. And it literally wasn't a thought that I had ever had. And then because I was so protected, right? Like there couldn't be anything wrong with me because I was so protected.
Right.
And then
like I'm making sure
I am making sure there is nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
And then that, you know, that ability to allow in, you know, that perspective without someone saying it to me, right? I was like, whew, I mean, just the beginning of life changing. Yeah. Shifting. And inspiring to just never stop that journey. Yeah. You know, Walker and I talk about this. I still harm people. We all still harm people, right? I don't do it intentionally like I used to. Right,
Yeah.
right. We're going to. It's inevitable, but I'm not doing it from a place of wanting to cause someone pain.
Right.
I'm doing it from my own pain. Yeah. And recognizing that too. I don't have that motivation to harm anyone. Yeah. But it doesn't mean I don't set boundaries. It doesn't mean that I don't say, hey, that is absolutely not okay, what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, and that's meeting a need for self-care.
Right.
And that's one of our needs.
Right.
And setting a boundary is a way. And I used to not appreciate that word at all, because to me, it was other people setting boundaries. And I guess I probably told myself the thought was, I'm being shut out. Right. And so to me, I think a long time ago, the idea of a boundary was shutting people out. Until, again, in the needs awareness work, I'm realizing, oh no, if I set a boundary, that's protective, use of my strategies. It's a way, it's a strategy to care for myself or to protect this particular need, whatever the boundary is.
Right.
And so I see it as a way of embracing myself instead of as a way of keeping people out.
Yeah.
And that has helped me accept the idea of a boundary more. And I also still work very much to try and understand if someone else if my boundary is not really working for someone else, then I also really want to offer care and consideration for why that is. And is there any other way I contribute to your needs?
Absolutely. Right.
If this one doesn't work for me, there are other ways. Is there any other way I can contribute to your sense of whatever it is?
Whatever it is.
Being
right.
seen or whatever it is. And so it's both.
Right.
It's both caring for my needs and caring for yours. I'm not okay with it being one or the other.
Right.
Anymore.
Right. Right. Anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I spent decades really trying to care for other people's needs and not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I ever did, the external message was that's selfish, or so
Right.
I went through that. It's very habitual for many humans.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and then I will say, early on, or still in my journey of meeting other people in the MVC world,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have left that term because nonviolent communication doesn't resonate with many people.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of changed to compassionate communication, which I think is a softer maybe or more resonant phrase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately it just, for me, has changed to needs awareness, because it really isn't either of those things.
Right.
And in those spaces, there are still a lot of MVC spaces. There are many trainers out there who offer courses, and there are things to do in that realm. I still meet people in that realm who very much stick to Marshall Rosenberg's original pattern of OFNR, observations, feelings, needs, requests.
Okay.
And they'll go through that list to navigate difficult things.
Sure.
And what I see is, and there's more.
Right.
It's not just that.
Right.
It's not just that I'm going to turn my judgment into an observation. That's great.
Right.
But stating an observation, telling you how I feel, telling you what I need, and then making a request. Phew, what's that other person supposed to do with that?
Right.
And that was part of my struggle in the early days before I sort of expanded the awareness to more just needs awareness, was there's this formula that's supposed to work, and it doesn't work for me. It's broken. And then that turns to, I'm broken. I can't do it. Why can't I do it? And so over time I realized, it's simply because there's more.
Yeah.
That's a framework.
Right.
And there's a lot of filling in that happens in that framework.
Right.
Mostly empathy.
Right.
So the actual skill of needs-based empathy fills in all the spaces in that framework.
Yeah.
And then that's a very different approach. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's several things that come to mind. The first thing I think of is earlier in my career, like I would work with someone and they were like, but I did all the things. I checked all the boxes, right?
I
like
did what
why,
you said.
right. Why is this not working right for me? And, and this is just my language. And I'm not saying that I wasn't there myself. I'm sure that I was, right? Because someone's going to have the answer. And if I just follow the guidelines, then all will be well, right? So I know that I was there. You were talking, earlier just in conversation, just about the integration, piece. And for me, there was this huge shift, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. It's hard for me to remember, but where compassion for me initially, I think, was still a lot of judgment in regards to whether or not someone deserved my compassion. Was their story or their sharing still something that I decided had value? And then I had this experience at a retreat where something shifted. And so my phrase that's like been my mantra is, compassion is the complete acceptance of another's humanness without knowing their story. And that for me has been like a mantra. Like I want to do all those things, right? I want to, because we know that those are helpful. But for me, it was also changing like my energy around it. And there was something that a guest that we just spoke to, what did she say about the unknown? Oh, and so I use Joseph Campbell a lot, for quoting, and I love that. I'm always like, step into the dark cave, right? And how we really choose the very uncomfortable familiar instead of this the uncomfortable not familiar. But for me, it was like practicing the unknown, practicing uncertainty, practicing the gray, so that I could do these things with meaning and a different energy than just, well, I did the observation, I did the feeling, I did the right, and I put it out there. Now, what are you going to do with that?
Exactly.
Right. And so it's really, very much like, this is my process. This is, again, a structure designed to help get us somewhere. But it's not the destination.
Right.
Right.
And this is not outcome-based work.
Right.
Yeah. As much as we might like it to be, it's not. And I love what you said about the compassion, that acceptance of someone's humanness. Mm-hmm. And it isn't the story that's important. And it's funny when I say that, because when I think of the power of myth, and Joseph Campbell, what I think about is how powerful story is. But that doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
And so a story can be really powerful, and it might not be true.
Right.
Or at least there might be a much more meaningful truth underneath it.
Yeah.
Which is really how I look at everybody's story.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll get a little bump up against someone, either a mentoring, client or someone in a practice group. I'll say, but I want you to know my story. I'll say, oh yeah, would you love some shared reality?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I'm still getting to needs, because all my guesses are about what they really need.
Right.
And when you get to that, and they can say, yeah, it really helps me have a sense of being seen if you hear my story, or a sense of shared reality if we know the same thing.
Right.
And so we can hold that and say, yes, those needs are there too.
Yeah.
They want to be met too.
Right.
And then when we go deeper, then they realize, oh yeah, the story doesn't really matter, does it? Like when they have that insight, because when they get underneath the story,
right,
and figure out, oh, what I'm really longing for is some support in this relationship, or what I'm really longing for is more adventure in my life, or whatever they get to.
Right.
When you know it, their whole body says it and resonates. And when they get to that deeper need, they see that it's not the story that really matters. The story helps us get there, though. I'm not saying story is not important.
Oh, absolutely.
We're humans. We love story. I love story.
Right.
I love to read.
Yeah.
Fiction. Oh, fiction. Just, I just read a book and I didn't want it to end, It's like, So I love story. I love the creativity of story. I love the discovery in story. It meets so many needs for me to read fiction. And even when I read fiction now, I'm doing it through that needs-based lens of seeing these characters and, imagining what needs they're trying to meet by all those things they're doing. And then knowing me as I read, how do I feel when I read that? How do I feel when that character says that? It's such a, it's an experience of deeper self-connection. Yeah. If I read through that lens. But when I walk through life with that lens, it's a ongoing self-connection process. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of opportunity out there every day, all day.
Every day. And when I think about when I was in Japan last, or 2 times ago, I can't remember, I chose to do a 5-day, I was going to do a 5-day meditation retreat. And so it was at a temple in a small fishing village on the southern island. And I was totally into, long meditation in the morning, work period, make lunch together, eat, work period, make dinner, eat dinner, and then maybe a teaching. And, And I'm not Buddhist, but I do have a place in my heart for it because I have family members who have been and are, and have certainly studied it. And on the second day, it was very near in the beginning. One of my things that I wanted to do as my job was go down and gather seawater because we were going to make handmade udon noodles.
Oh, okay.
Out of mountain yam flour and seawater, something like that. But I was so intrigued by, we're going to do what? With what? Okay. So I went down. It was on a hill and on a mountain, obviously. And it was quite, a walk down to the ocean and a walk back up. And I went myself. I don't know. I think I just wanted some time for silence.
Yeah.
I love silence. I grew up an only child, so I love silence. And I got down, and the stairs that went from the sort of ramparts part of it down to the beach were blocked. They were under construction. So I kind of looked down and thought, ooh, could I jump it? I think I could jump it. It was a long way down, but it was sand. I was telling myself, but it's sand. It's not like concrete. Sand. And so I walked a ways to see if there were more stairs, and I didn't see any, and I thought I can jump it. So I got up near the wall and looking over, and then I got on the wall looking over, and I could tell I was nervous. I was like, "Oh, you're nervous." I'm like, "Yeah, but I can do it." There was that part of me wasn't quite self-connected in that moment. I think had I paused longer, I might have said, I think there's a part of me where that trepidation is speaking more loudly, and I'm really wanting some safety and security. I didn't do that little self-connection piece because that thought was pretty strong. Oh, it's not that far.
Right.
So I jumped. And I know I could even feel it at the last second. My body held back because my body was scared, And even though cognitively I was pushing through this moment, my body was like, don't do it. And so in that moment of leaping, I was at odds with my body.
Yeah.
That didn't go well.
Yeah.
So instead of leaping out away from the wall where the sand was, I kind of went straight down because I was sort of an opposing position. And unfortunately, at the bottom of the wall were rocks. So I landed there. And my arm broke in many ways. But it was, it was like this part of my arm was over here now. And it was so obviously very broken.
Wow.
And my hand. So there were a lot of things that weren't working. So in that moment, I thought, okay, deeper self-connection needed.
Yeah.
It was a real moment of self-judgment, huge self-judgment in that moment. And it wasn't about the jumping. It was about the self-connection piece.
Right.
Why did I not pause and really connect? And then so I sat there, I was holding, I picked it up and was holding it like this,
Wow.
And I just put it to my body and I was holding it here. And I actually sat there a few minutes. I was a little nauseous because it was, And I sat there a few minutes and was determined, if nothing else, to self-connect.
Wow.
I just thought, I have got to get with myself here.
Right.
And so then Then it was a lot of awareness. Yes, the self-judgments and the judgments about the stupid stairs and why don't, just whoa. So I took in all the judgments, translating to needs, safety, security. A lot of things were coming up, and self-acceptance. And that was a hard one, but I really wanted it.
Yeah.
And then I got up and I sort of looked up the mountain and I thought, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can walk up there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody else on the beach or the ramparts. There's no one around. But I thought, I don't see another way. I think I even said, I don't think I have another strategy.
Yeah.
I need help.
Yeah.
I need help.
Yeah.
So I did. I was holding my arm like this, and that was the most mindful walk I have ever had.
Yeah.
And I'd done mindful walking many times in my life.
Right.
Even at the temple,
Right.
But every step, and noticing, does leaning this way help the pain? It was starting to throb, and it was very painful.
Yeah.
And I was nauseous, and like no blood in my head, and I thought, if I faint, it's going to be no good. Like there's no help coming if I lose it anywhere along this path,
Right.
So
Right.
step after step after step,
Mm-hmm.
mindful of every step, listening for that footfall, feeling my arm, feeling the other hand on my arm, trying to protect, and just mindful of my thoughts, my feelings, my need, just all of it, I really wanted the connection. And it took a long time to get up that hill.
Yeah.
I had to stop a few times and lean on something. It was a hard journey up that hill.
Yeah.
But I made it. And I'll cut out all what happened after that, except to say that it was a Thursday, I think, and none of the doctors work on Thursday anywhere nearby.
Oh my gosh.
So I find out. And so we had an hour drive to the nearest doctor or hospital. It was a very long day.
Yeah.
And a painful day. And when I found myself in a cast, and so incredibly appreciative of how compassionate those doctors and nurses were. Oh, I have not experienced that here. Just incredible hands on my shoulders, and
comfort.
Just such comfort.
Yeah.
And when they were going to pull the arm apart to try to fix it, the nurse I know, the nurse. I mean, I have a little bit of Japanese. They have a little bit of English. We were trying to make it work, And the nurse put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, "Can you pain?" And my first thought was, "What do you think I'm doing?" I'm doing pain. And then I realized in that moment she meant, "Can I do more?" And then in that moment I was like, okay, I'll do more. So I said yes. And so then they did it, and it was horrible. But when I got back to where I was staying, where I was doing the true retreat, I had a decision to make.
Yeah.
Am I going to leave and go back to my family where they were and be done with this, or am I going to stay?
Yeah.
And I really, again, I was still pretty self-connected, and I thought, what needs would I meet by going? What needs would I meet by staying?
Yes.
That's my needs assessment whenever I have a decision.
Yeah.
Each decision, there's going to be met needs and unmet needs. I want to look at both for both ways.
Yeah.
And I decided to stay because I thought, it's in a cast. I mean, it's
right.
As much help as I can have right now, I have.
Right.
And wouldn't it be interesting if I can be with myself and this very broken arm? So I finished the retreat. I did the rest of the 5 days. And it was actually one of those mornings of meditation where I had the realization, after something that I can share, that I was ready to share this work with other people and be in community with other people who are doing this work.
Yeah.
Because it had been a really lonely journey for me. I had not been a part of a community in
Okay.
really any of these realms.
Wow.
And even though I'd been practicing all these different things, I hadn't been practicing in community.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really been sharing it. I had in my own way, but not overtly.
Right.
And so on the morning after I broke it, 5:00, you're up and meditating on a cushion. And there was such pain. It was throbbing. They're not big on medications there. I'm not either, so it worked for me. I said, I'll be all right. And so I wasn't on pain meds, which just hurt. And it seemed so big. The pain was so big. It seemed like it was all of me.
Yeah.
Because it was so big.
Right.
And so throbbing. And I didn't have a sling, so at that time, and I made one later, but so I was just holding up my cast like this, while I was on the cushion. And it was in that morning, in that morning session of sitting and being present with myself with as much awareness as I could muster, that I realized, wow, pain. I was talking to my pain. You're so big. We're so big. It's like all of me right now.
Yeah.
And it was in that moment that I thought, but there's more of me.
Yeah.
And I adjusted. I was connecting to how much I would love comfort because I didn't have that. That was a big need, comfort. And I adjusted, my position a little bit, probably to meet a need for comfort. And my big toe on my left foot sort of brushed against, it must have been thread on the zabuton or, something that kind of caught it. And I became aware of my big toe. And I thought, oh, my big toe doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And that was all it took. And so I spent the rest of the hour, I don't know what hour we were in at that point, but I spent the rest of the time. I knew I had time.
Yeah.
I spent the rest of the time doing a full and slow body scan of every part of my body.
Yeah.
And so much of it was okay.
Yeah.
So many body parts were perfectly content to be there, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just this, I could feel myself smiling. I was like, oh, this is funny. Like, all my toes are okay.
Yeah.
And, and my knees and my shins and my calf muscles, they're so okay.
Yeah.
And I, went through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then when I got to my arm, I just gave it a lot of care. And I said, I know. This is really hard.
Yeah.
But I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'll do whatever I can to care, for you.
Yeah.
And while I was doing that body scan, the pain was there. I could feel it. But it was so in the background. It wasn't big anymore. It was so in the background. And I could still care for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a left hand accompaniment to a right hand melody.
Yeah.
That left hand is so tender and quiet, but really important. That's how I felt about my arm. It's like, you're very important to me.
Yeah. Especially
as a musician. That was part of my heartbreak and my fear.
Yes.
Will I ever play again?
Right.
And so important. And you're in community with a lot of other parts.
Yes.
That moment was the moment where I realized this is huge for me. And I would like to help other people be able to experience just a deeper knowing, this inner knowing of who I am, what I think, what I feel, what my body's doing, what I need, what I'd love.
Yes.
That experience of knowing, I wish every human could have that. Like you said earlier about the work, You wish everyone could take that course. I wish everyone could experience a deep sense of knowing.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Cathan. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I know we are out of time. Anything that comes to mind that you would like to share with the people listening today?
I think that the thing that I would invite people to consider is shifting away, if we can, from that right, wrong, good, bad thinking. And seeing if we can shift into a curiosity, as you both have for this podcast, a curiosity about the human experience, everyone's human experience. And to connect on that level of what we all share, which is universal human needs. That we all share that, and there's so much connection that can be had there. So much seeing and knowing that can be had there. And I have trouble getting there when I am in that right, wrong, good, bad thinking.
Yeah.
Thank you. That makes me think of my grandparents, different generation, came through the Great Depression, fought in World War II, and it's like that was their existence.
Yes.
And it's a generational shift to change that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And it may take generations.
That's right.
To shift that. Because me too. My parents, were older parents because I was adopted, and a military father and a Japanese mother, and there was definitely right, wrong, and good, bad in the world. And it's hard to shift out of that.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it helps. It does meet needs to have that view.
Yes.
It just doesn't meet all of them. And that's what I hope for us as humans.
Yeah.
Think about your story. I know I keep going on, but it's fascinating and just riveting story of growth, right? If you had not been in that space where were shifting out of good, bad, right, wrong, that would have been an entirely different experience at the bottom of that wall and walking all the way back up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm imagining even that I probably wouldn't have made it. I probably would have been so overwhelmed with all the judgments, and I'm so freaking stupid, and, I can't believe, that I probably would have kind of worked myself up into just unconscious, probably would have just fainted because I just couldn't probably hold all of that. Because, I don't know. Maybe I would have made it, but it would have been a very different journey up that hill. Yes.
It would have been a very different journey. Yes.
Yes. Indeed.
Yeah.
And ever since, probably, too.
And ever since. I mean, there was
That's
something.
a big moment.
That's a big moment. It was a big moment. And self-acceptance has always been a need that's a challenge for me to meet from myself.
Yeah.
And that things like that don't help. When I make a decision that obviously doesn't work, it's harder to have a sense of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
But when I do that inner work and that inner knowing, I can say, oh, yeah. It's so easy to see when I go deeper how much I wanted adventure and effectiveness and spontaneity and excitement and stimulation. I was meeting a lot of needs by jumping off that wall. And I want to know that. I want to accept that.
Right.
Okay, it didn't work out, but I still actually met those needs, It was
in a very different way,
really,
that's all. Yeah.
Very much an adventure. I wish I would have leaped with faith, and they would have, I think, been very different. And I want to accept that part of me that was holding back.
Right.
Because at first I was really judging that part. Why couldn't you just let me do it? Why couldn't you just let me fly?
Right.
And, because I care about my body. I care about my safety. I care about security, well-being. So to be able to accept both parts of me, that one part was trying to meet these needs and the other part was trying to meet these needs.
Right.
And I wasn't integrated. I wasn't holding space for both.
Right.
I just had two opposing sides that hadn't met minds yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been very different. Yes, and it would have been very different before I jumped had I been able to self-connect, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't spend much time on woulda, coulda, shoulda because, each moment is who I am, and that's part of the self-acceptance.
Right.
In that moment, I had 2 sets of needs I was trying to meet, and I hadn't quite taken the time to have a convergence
Right.
there, you know?
Yeah.
So that was me in the moment, conflicted.
Yeah.
And I can look back and say, I was very conflicted.
Right.
And that had an impact on my decision and my action.
Yes.
Moving on. Life continues.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Yes, but it does continue, as you say, in a connected way,
Yeah.
as much as I can.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, I have moments where I'm not,
Right.
and then I get back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your curiosity.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
You're welcome.
It helps us all. So much to learn from each other if we can stay curious.
Oh, I'm such a fan of the more of us, the better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helping each other.
Yeah. Me too. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.